Sausage.
Hello, and welcome to Attack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Mark Krishnaz, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about LEGO 2K Drive. Not just this episode, but potentially, well, not potentially the next episode, but at least the next episode. LEGO 2K Drive is a driving game where you are driving around LEGO cars in a very Forza Horizon type of open world structure. I was looking for something mindless to play after finishing System Shock and considered Forza Horizon 5. But when I was perusing my library of games, I saw LEGO 2K Drive and was reminded that it existed and thought, hey, I bet this would be a good time. I like the Horizon structure. It's a very mindless, I can listen to podcasts, I can do whatever kind of structure. This seems perfect. And I've always been very, very curious about this game. So why don't I pick this? And that's what I did. I played it on Xbox Series X, and I've completed 2 of the big cups. I think I need to complete 1 more, and then maybe an additional one, or the 3rd one that is, will open up the big final cup to finish the game. So I might be roughly halfway through the main story, not including collectibles and side quests and stuff of that nature. But I've played it for just over 6 hours. The last time I played it, I tried navigating the area and just going after collectibles and kind of lounging about to see how that would feel compared to mainlining side quests and races and stuff of that nature. I hate this game. I think it is incredibly boring. The first thing that came to mind when I loaded it up was, wow, this main menu is incredibly busy. There is so much shit all over the place. It feels like a free-to-play game, and that translates to the entire game. It's very chatty. There are these characters who are always chatting up in your ear very annoyingly. You have this robot, Stud, I think they're called, S-T-U-D, more like an STD, of the ear, because they won't shut the fuck up. The game really likes holding your hand, and not so much tutorializing everything, but making it feel that way. It wants to make sure you know it's still there, just in case you need it. And there is a semblance of a story, but I could not care less about Shadow X, the big bad who you are trying to defeat eventually in the final cup. He keeps throwing his stooges at you in the earlier cups. But it's just so boring. There are many regular standard races of either lap-based races or point-to-point. I forget what those are called, but progression races. And what I did not realize, because I think I knew this at some point, but it not so much slipped my mind, but completely fell off a cliff in my mind. I did not remember that the racing in this game is basically a kart racing game where you have power-ups and the laps are relatively short. And it's just a kart racer. You're drifting to gain boost, as one does, as well as collecting power-ups to damage your fellow racers and get yourself into a better position. And much like the second Sega Sonic Racer, Transformed, I think it was called, you can't, but your vehicle will automatically transform depending on the terrain you're driving or, well, driving through. So if you are in more of an off-road area, you will transform into your off-terrain vehicle. Or if you are in the water, you will transform into your boat vehicle. There is no flying vehicle, but you do eventually unlock jetpacks, they like to call them, which allows you to glide through the air for an extended period of time. And it sucks. The track design is mostly fine, and I think a large part of that is because many of the tracks are, I'm not sure if they are literally built from the open world environment or they're just in the same type of setting, because you have your main little tiny tutorial hub world where you go back after every cup race, but it's not really a place you spend a lot of time in because there's not much to do there. And then you have 4 different biomes, which is the highlight of the game in that the worlds you are racing in, you're driving around in, looking for collectibles in, so on, they all look great and they're all distinct. You have your deserty area, your snowy area, your Halloween themed area, and then the 4th one I think is more of a woodsy area. I can't remember the 4th one all that much, but they all look great. But the second you get to them, you realize there's not really anything to do here. There are a lot of collectibles in these areas, but they're not fun to find. They become easier to find eventually after you do a few missions that give you tools for making, finding, and collecting collectibles easier, like a little device that will blink more rapidly the closer you get to collectible, and a magnet that will make it so you don't have to get that close to a collectible, both of which make collecting easier. But because the races, the tracks that are built for them, a lot of them are just the main environment that you're in, there's not a lot of creativity that comes from them. There are some instances where you have completely standalone races and tracks, that is, like one that takes place on, I think, the moon, but even that wasn't particularly exciting. I think that was actually the one that was maybe the dullest of them all, where it was just a very, very short circle that was 8 or 12 laps, and I ended up destroying that one. I got into a groove, hitting these boost power-ups, and just lapping the competition. Another thing about the races that makes them not that fun, and I haven't turned it off because I'm too scared that the game will be challenging then, because it feels very cheap like a kart racer, and then there are no levels. I guess there are these grades as you level up your character. You reach new grades. You start out at C, then you get to B, and then A. And I believe that is supposed to make the races faster and more difficult. There is a setting for difficulty assist or something along those lines, which is on by default. And I think that's what makes the races very rubber bandy both ways. So at the start of every race, the competition will pull ahead of you. I don't know if you can get a head start type of boost. The game never mentioned one, so I don't know if that exists. It doesn't really matter, though, because initially the top 3 or 4 will be ahead of you. You'll gradually catch up, and then you get ahead of them, and then it'll just be a bit of rubber band until the very end of the race, where you'll likely still manage to pull ahead. Because if they get ahead, they'll end up slowing down, or something happen to you that'll get you back in the fray. It makes the races very, not so much boring, but unsurprising. There's no real surprise to any of the races. They play out the same, every single one of them. And I guess that does make it boring. The power-ups are all pretty standard, but one of the things that is more of a problem here than in other kart racers is that the fact that this is all a LEGO game means that things are breaking all over the place. The environment, other cars, etc. And when you are attacking enemies a lot and other cars are attacking other cars, there are bricks flying all over the place, and the screen can get very, very busy and incredibly hard to read, especially if you're using the power-up that is this type of firework, machine gun, auto lock-on thing that has a lot of ammo for a power-up compared to all the other power-ups, and does a lot of damage and just fills the screen with pieces and bullets and just everything in the world, and it becomes a fucking mess. I hate it. The game does play well, I'll give it that as well, in addition to looking quite nice. It plays well. I don't love it, but it's just so boring. When you're not racing or looking for collectibles, the side quests are all terrible. They range from, hey, I want you to go to find this person for me. Deliver this item to this person who is in this area, by these things, and they're wearing this, or they have this color shirt, or whatever. And those Where's Waldo missions suck. Sometimes they're easy. There was one where I had to find a horse that was in this one area near the giant pickaxe. And they were very easy to spot because there was a giant pickaxe I was looking for, and they were the only horse or anything near it. They were just standing on top of the pickaxe, and I went and grabbed them and took them back to the lady horse who wanted me to get them for whatever stupid reason. But there are other instances where someone asks you to find someone in a green racing suit, for example, by the food trucks. And that was way more of a pain than it should have been. And in those cases, the characters you're trying to find are also kind of hidden. Not to mention, there are dozens and dozens, if not almost 100 other minifigs walking about in these downtown areas. That makes finding this very specific one a pain in the ass. You have side quests that ask you to mow a bit of lawn before the stuff you've mowed grows back. Ones where you have to wrangle up this animal or that animal for someone who let them loose. Ones where you have to stop robot invasions, which are just you destroying robots that are trying to blow themselves up at points of interest, or the occasional zombie evasion, and just a lot of busy work that really goes into the whole, this feels like a free-to-play game. Then come in all of the microtransactions. There are so many microtransactions. And you can purchase, I think, most, if not all of them, with currency you earn in-game. But if you want to buy all of them, that's going to require a lot of grinding. Or you can spend real money to buy this in-game currency. And that just goes into this whole, it feeling like a free-to-play game. And I don't know if it's me who's to blame or the studio who made this game, which is Visual Concepts. And when I think about it, I think it's more so me who's to blame, because what should I have really expected from the studio behind NBA 2K and WWE 2K? Should I have expected anything different? Probably not. But this seems extra egregious. It feels like It's the whole thing. Even though I couldn't even find the store at first, I don't think the game told me exactly where the store was where I could spend this currency. So, touche there. But I just don't like playing it. After 2 hours, I thought to myself, will this be the first game I drop for Attack the Backlog that I do not finish? And then I powered through, and at this point, I think I can just power through one more week and finish the game, because I'm definitely not going to spend my time looking for collectibles, even with the tools I've gained. It's just so boring even doing that. The world is full of characters who you can talk to and get a bit of cheeky humor out of, I guess. But that's another problem for me. I don't think the game is funny at all. I don't like any of the humor. It's just a weird game that feels like it's trying to find that same magic that is in your Traveler's Tales LEGO games, but putting it into a racing game, and it doesn't work. It's a bummer for me because I was really hoping to enjoy it, but I don't like hanging out in the world, and then when I get into races, I really don't like it. That's probably the biggest bummer for me, is that I did not know this was a kart racer, and I don't think it's a good kart racer. I've played my fair share of kart racers, and this is definitely near the bottom. It's worse than the Hot Wheels Unleashed games, worse than the Beach Buggy Racing games, obviously worse than Mario Kart games, worse than the Nickelodeon arcade kart racers. There was that one with Shrek DreamWorks, worse than that. It is maybe better than the Smurfs one, but I'm not entirely sure. The Smurfs one disappointed me because it was clearly using the Mission of Belief engine, and I love that game, and the kart racer wasn't something I was also loving. But I am just having an absolute not blast with LEGO 2K Drive. There are also these podcast collectibles you can get, which would be nice if they just randomly happened while you were racing and you had a podcast pop up with some good writing that was funny and cute and made you smile. But they're just text bubbles you get when you find a person and you interact with them. And then here's a podcast of 2 paragraphs of bubbles. It's like, okay, all right, game. That's not exactly how podcasts work, but whatever. It's just so disappointing. It's so disappointing. The fact that you can't customize your driver is very annoying as well. You can pick from many different drivers. There are so many in the store to purchase, and you gain some here and there while progressing through the story and all that. But you can't mix and match or create your own, which I think is really dumb, but goes into the whole, here are all these minifigs you can buy. But it would make sense if by buying the different pre-made characters that unlock new outfits and faces and stuff like that, accessories for your created character, if you want to create a character, or you can use these pre-made ones, because there are plenty of vehicles, pre-made vehicles you can buy, but there's also the vehicle creator. You can customize any vehicle you purchase, but also build one from scratch, which is cool and probably the coolest part of the game, though I find it to be fairly useless, and I don't want to waste my time building a vehicle in a game I'm not enjoying that's not going to really give me any benefit over the pre-made vehicle. So I just use those, and if there's an attachment like the collectible finder or the magnet that I want to use, I just put it onto a pre-made vehicle I like. But I think the fact that you can't customize your driver is dumb. I don't like it. I don't like anything about this game. I don't like playing it, and it's really bumming me out. But that's my initial time with it. So that will do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get stuff like a monthly Q&A, some fancy Discord roles, and a private channel for the cool kids called the Cool Kids Club, as well as random drops here and there and other goodies as well. Or you can just support me if that is your jam. That is, again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have both a wonderful rest of your day and a lovely rest of your week and all of that jazz. This comes out on Sunday, so I can't really say have a wonderful weekend because, I mean, whenever you're listening to this, just have a good day, all right? So, for now, adios, arrivederci, bye, bye.